That's what's happening all over America, where I live, where
Right.
you live, where your friends live. Parents are trying to raise their kids and instill their family values. And then the kid comes home, it's a whole nother human being. It's not even the same kid you raised. So unless you want to lose your children and not recognize them and not have your child, I mean, that's what's happening. They're going to school like this one. Mom, I'm non-binary. The kid comes home. Where did you learn that from? Well, my teacher told me some things. And like, you're 7 years old. What are you talking about? Your teacher, these teachers, honestly, they need to be fired, prosecuted. I'm pretty sure this is some sort of sexual harassment. And parents, they need to stop being nice, because these activist teachers are trying to brainwash your children. 10-year-olds in China can do advanced algebra and they're getting into calculus. 10-year-olds in America don't even know what bathroom to use.
Welcome to The Right to Inspire. Journalist and host Sarah Strackhouse has worked at Fox News, the CW, CBS, NBC, and Time Warner cable stations across the country for more than 10 years, and is now focused on telling inspiring stories of those dedicated to making change. She's driving the message home that ultimately you have the right, the freedom, and the power to be the change you want to see in the world. You have the right to inspire.
Thank you everyone so much for joining us today. I'm honored to be joined by Jonathan Koeppel. He's the former fired Louisiana teacher who went viral in April for standing up for what he believes in. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, I'm really pumped to be here.
Well, in a time where I think conservative thought is now almost attacked, or people are afraid to stand up for what they believe in, you did something very out of the norm and stood up even at a school board meeting, and I guess it's becoming more normal now, but to really stand up for what you believe in. You went viral back in April for, again, talking about critical race theory and gender. I know that was just the first time you spoke. Let's take a quick look at that video.
I recorded the video from Brain Pop's official Instagram page. Hope you can hear it.
Racism in our society. A built-in system of bias that makes life easier for white people and more difficult for Black people and other people of color. It puts them at greater risk for poverty, unemployment, and disease. Structural racism is a factor in some disturbing trends. Black people are nearly 6 times more likely than whites to be imprisoned. And Black men are killed by police at more than twice the rate of white men.
All right, so that's the first video. They're telling our kids, they're telling our Black children that they are oppressed by white people and that it's in the system, so they don't have a chance, and that our good policemen are more apt to shoot a Black man or a Black woman, which is ridiculous. The next video I'm going to show you, they're teaching incorrect grammar to give a kid whatever gender pronoun they want. Psychology tells you that when you're talking about sexuality with kids, their brains are not developed. You have to raise a child, you rear a child. They don't know about sexuality. When an adult pushes some kinky sexual ideas upon them, it winds up grooming them to believe whatever the adult tells them. So this is the video by Brain Pop that our kids are spending hours in front of. This is what they're telling them about the pronouns. And ACT already gave the kids the opportunity to choose their own gender when they took the ACT. I got pictures of the forms.
Like meet Moby and Orbot. They are my best friends. Actually, yeah, they can be used as a singular pronoun too. Like if you said, I'm going to see my friend, I could ask, where do they live? Since I don't know your friend's gender identity. And some individuals prefer they as a pronoun. Like meet Orbot, they are my best friend.
We got kids that can't read and write, and then we're going to teach them incorrect grammar. I mean, it's ridiculous, okay? Who gave permission to talk about this with kids? There's 2 genders. If you're born with a penis and you have testicles, that's just anatomy. You're a male. If you have a vagina and ovaries, you're a female. A man cannot menstruate. A man cannot lactate and breastfeed a child. You cannot give birth if you're a man. If you want to be an adult and do whatever you want with your life, I'm okay with that. Don't push this ideology on children. I'm not going to work in a district that's okay with that. You need to make a clear statement on how many genders are there, because parents they're already pulling their kids out of public school. They're doing homeschool options. They're going online. It's going to increase as this liberal ideology comes into our schools. This isn't a political indoctrination camp, okay? It's public education. We want to teach education, not left-wing ideas that aren't backed up by facts or science. Thank you.
And I know you've spoken a lot since then. Watching that video and kind of seeing everything that it stirred up, what goes through your mind?
It's kind of surreal because the whole concept of like parents and teachers speaking at school board meetings, opposing what's going on in their districts and where they work, to me at least, and maybe to the general public as well, that's kind of a new thing. That hasn't been going on for a long time. We should have been doing it years ago. It's a good thing it's happening now, but I'm just, I didn't plan to go viral. I didn't think I was going to get all kinds of attention. I'm just glad it happened and that it was able to encourage other people to do the same thing. And so it's been kind of a very interesting, unique experience, and just watching everything kind of play out and unfold. Even to this day, I still got things happening because of that viral video.
Yeah. And I want to talk about kind of what you're doing now and moving forward. And I know you were fired from the school district, but before we even get into that, what made you stand up and voice your concern? I mean, you obviously care so much about your students to go out on a limb like that. Talk a little bit about why you did that.
I thought in the area I worked in Louisiana, we don't have counties. We have what's called a parish, very similar to a county. And we have a lot of schools in my area. We're one of the top places in Louisiana to be, St. Tammany Parish. I didn't think we were having issues like California. I didn't think we were having issues like in New York and some of the stuff you see on the internet. I didn't think that existed until I realized that one of the software programs, BrainPop, that is used by children in kindergarten, grade school, middle school, I saw some of their content had to do with teaching kids to be whatever gender they want. Kids who can't even think for themselves, they can't even tie their own shoes. They had a video that was telling Black kids that they cannot get ahead in life because they're oppressed by white people. I said, I cannot sit here and be silent about this. The majority of my community has no idea. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, because I was already hearing things about what teachers are doing in their classrooms. Students were kind of starting to come to me because they had heard that I might be a more conservative thinking teacher just from rumors or whatever. They might see something on the internet. But I was already starting to see what's going on. And I said, this is it. This is my tipping point. I'm going to go out there, bold. I might lose my job. I might take some heat. I went by myself. I spoke at that meeting, and I just said, somebody has to do it. I just happened to be the guy that said, yes, I'll go do it. That's really it.
What was the response from the community? Parents, friends. I mean, you guys all pretty much grew up around there, right? It's a community where most people know each other.
Yeah, Louisiana, it's like like a big little state where everybody does know each other. And we have 7 high schools. I think we have like maybe, I don't know. We got a lot of schools. We got 7 high schools, a ton of middle schools, a ton of elementary schools. Most of the high schools have over 1,200, 1,500. One of the schools, when I started working, it was 2,000 kids. Then it dropped down to 1,400 because of COVID. Kids disappeared. So the community at first was shocked. They had no clue that this was happening. They had zero clue. They started sharing the video. Then the video, started going on the internet. Parents were upset. They were really ticked off, and they started calling the school board and calling the schools. And then that kind of brought a lot of heat to me. Just by way of default, I was the guy that brought it up. So of course, the school board, superintendent, the principal, they want to know like, what's going on with Jonathan? Why is he doing this? Where did he get this info from? The parents, I think, were glad that I spoke up because it made them aware. And a lot of them, like I said, they had no clue. And so they were just shocked.
So then talk about the school board reaction. What was their reaction to once you had a conversation with them? I know eventually you were fired for, we talked a little bit about this, something that seems, they said that you were refusing to wear a mask, even though you had a medical exemption. Talk a little bit about the interaction with the school board and kind of what stemmed from there once everything got kicked up.
So after the first meeting happened, the very next day, I'm called into the office to talk with the principal because the superintendent and some school board members said, hey, you need to talk to Jonathan. And I think he's going to make parents think that we are teaching these things in school. And I'm like, well, this is happening in school. So it's not that they're thinking, now they know. I'm confused. I'm getting all this info from them, and I'm kind of like sideswiped. I don't really know what's going on. I'm just keeping calm, being very patient, and just, um, keep my composure. I realized at that point, I'm targeted. Obviously, I'm extremely targeted. I was even told that they know I have a target on my back. I'm like, well, I didn't put it there. You must have put it there. So that kind of was like the beginning of just being watched like a hawk. And anytime I did anything in public, and others speaking at a school board meeting, I would be called in immediately the next day and talked to. So I don't really know exactly which specific school board members may have held animosity towards me or may have it. I know that the superintendent has made phone calls, to talk to my principal, and my principal's called me in because I've had to talk with the principal, the assistant superintendent, and then of course the superintendent, presides over all this stuff. So they've been really targeting me since that first time I spoke out.
Yeah. And then, so once that conversation about you getting fired, tell me a little bit about that.
So I didn't get fired after I spoke out the first time. Then I spoke again a second time about a separate issue, which was specifically related to teachers indoctrinating kids at my school site and other school sites based on parents who had complete evidence and had already met with the superintendent and the principal, and they spoke at the school board meeting as well. And they said nothing happened of it. Teachers weren't reprimanded. How is this person still teaching after parading my child in the hallway and shaming him in front of his classmates because he doesn't like BLM? So that type of stuff was going on. I brought it up again to public attention. They weren't too happy about that. Summer came. I thought things were great. I said, this is interesting. Maybe my school doesn't have much of a problem with me. Obviously, it's uncomfortable because we're having uncomfortable conversations, but that's how you come up with solutions and change things. You have to state what's going on. You have to point out the bad things that are happening. So I kept up doing that. I went to the state capitol and spoke at a Senate education hearing that was about curriculum for the state, World War II and the Holocaust, because now Holocaust education isn't happening in Louisiana in the new social studies standards. So I went to oppose that. So at the state level, I'm creating probably some enemies that they may have saw me in my video, and then now they're seeing me in front of their faces, and I'm opposing them too. And then some of that might have been shared, like on PragerU, maybe Turning Point, just in different places on the internet. So all summer I'm doing stuff like that. I go to CPAC. Had a great time. I went to a Turning Point event in, I think it was Orlando, the conference over the summer. Then I went to a leadership summit with Turning Point as well. I also went to North Carolina and did a big 4th of July concert. And there was thousands of people there and nobody was wearing a mask. They had fireworks. It was great. And just living my life all summer long, posting things on the internet, just, using my free speech. I get to school on the first day and immediately I walk into a teacher luncheon, breakfast, a teacher breakfast. Nobody's wearing a mask because you cannot eat and wear a mask. That is a fact. You can't do it. Nobody's wearing a mask. I walk in there without a mask on. The principal fusses at me, tells me to come with him. He pulls me to the side, plain view of everybody, says, look, you got to go home. Are you going to wear a mask? I said, no, I'm not going to wear a mask. Like, look, nobody in there is wearing a mask. Why would I wear one? So he kicks me off of campus and tells me I have a hearing. He pulls a note out of his pocket. And he says, here's this phone number, call him if you want help from the teachers union. And I'm like confused because at that moment I realized it was all premeditated. This was pre-planned. They planned to kick me off.
He had it in his pocket already. That's interesting.
Yeah. And then from there, it spiraled. I had hearings where I got to defend myself. And believe it or not, the local national teachers unions, crazy. Okay. I'm totally against them. The local teachers union where I live, the president is a decent guy. He helped me a lot. He advised me a lot. He kind of made sure my rights were not being violated by the school. And then he helped document what was going on. So I do want to throw that out there because a lot of times you hear only negative, and there's a lot of negative about the teachers. I even told him, I said, look, the teachers unions are nasty. I don't understand you guys, but thanks for helping me. And we were able to work together. But I eventually got fired.
Wow. And I know that you've been talking about litigation with the school district. Where are you at with that right now?
That's looking really good. So we're hoping to file a lawsuit very soon. And these people did a lot of things to me. And it wasn't just like, maybe they discriminated against me once. I've been documenting in my notes every time I was pulled into a meeting. I mean, there are so many instances where they targeted me and singled me out just for being me outside of work, outside of my job responsibilities. I didn't do any of this stuff during school hours. Everything they had a problem with was things that I did on my personal free time outside of school.
And like I remember when we spoke before, you said that you have a medical exemption for why you weren't wearing a mask as well.
Yep. So I got, for the past, for over 3 years, I've been seeing an ENT in my local area. I didn't even know I had this issue until I was talking with some friends. I said, look, man, I don't breathe right or something. And come to find out, I don't. I was in a boxing sparring match with a guy when I was a teenager. He broke my nose. I didn't know it was broken. And ever since, I've only been able to breathe out of one nostril fully. The other nostril's kind of messed up. And then I got some allergies going on. So altogether, it really makes breathing difficult, even without a mask. You put the mask on, it makes things 10 times worse. And so I got my doctor to write a note for me, and he explained the diagnosis, the things I have wrong with me. And I turned it into my school. I got it approved, and it was on file, on record. And they still, regardless of the fact that it was on record and filed, they still told me I had to wear a mask. They told me I was at one point, the principal had a meeting and he called people who don't wear masks Trumpers. If you don't want to wear a mask, you're a Trumper. That language does not belong in school. Because then he's already putting me in a political category for my disability.
Well, and you bring up an interesting point. The fact that politics has made its way into the public school system, which I think it should never be in there. I mean, I'm a new mother, and I think about when my kid is of age to go into the school district. I mean, what are they going to be taught at that point? I mean, what? Recently, actually, even here in Texas, which is a relatively conservative state, I think everyone knows that, a suburb here, I went to a meeting recently, and this woman was talking about how her granddaughter came home from middle school and was talking about the 7 stages of intimacy. They were talking about anal sex, same sex, oral sex, all of these things that I think, these kids are so young to be taught all of these different sexual orientations and just all of these big life decisions. I mean, when I was in school, we were taught how to, the old school banana condom thing, safe sex, wasn't even taught until much later and not in grade school. So it's just unbelievable the things that the kids are being taught now, and that I imagine they're hearing either at home or in the news. What are your thoughts when it comes to politics in the school district, and how do we get them out?
Unfortunately, the schools across America, even where I live, in where you live, are basically run by political activists. The education system is very broken. It has to be radically changed by bringing in conservative thinkers. I'm not saying overrun the schools with 100% conservative or people who identify as Republicans, but there's no balance. There's zero balance. And what these people are doing is inappropriate. Like these 7th graders, right? Whatever teacher is showing those books, and the people who approved that, they need to be arrested. They need to be arrested and prosecuted, because imagine you're in your neighborhood, all right, and your kid's playing in the street, and a grown man or woman walks up to your child with that book and starts pointing at the pictures and reading it to your kid. Aren't you going to call the police? That's what I would do. So these people, it's time to stop being nice and prosecute them when they do stuff like that. That is, you can prove that is some sort of sexual harassment. I have no doubt.
And that was in North Austin where those books were talking about that, right? That's the instance you're referring to. I mean, that was.
Yeah, I saw there was a mom. She was reading the textbook.
Yeah.
I mean, people, they need to be prosecuted. It's not okay for adults to be having these types of conversations and suggesting this material to children. It's inappropriate. I think it's illegal, and they definitely need to look into taking legal action and prosecuting these people, and so they can be labeled as what they are, pedophiles. Now, getting the politics out of schools, I had hope for it before I was fired. I said, man, maybe we can really make a difference. I'm able to speak up, and it's starting to make other people think. And then I was fired, and I said, man, is there still hope? Do they just get rid of anybody like me who's different, who speaks the truth, who wants to see change? Are they just going to get rid of everybody? And unfortunately, that's the reality. Um, but if every parent really got involved, okay, calling the school board, showing up at school board meetings, opposing these confrontation. We need more confrontation. That's what it would take. And we'd have to replace most of your school boards. You'd have to figure out a way to get rid of some of these principals. And then, but there's another greater issue people are overlooking. Where are the conservative teachers? Is it that, do we have a half and half thing where we got kind of like half conservatives, half liberals? Um, or is it mostly liberal and not really conservative? Because we don't know, because most conservatives that work in education are silent. We don't really, so we really don't know where that stands. So even if we get a new school board, new principal, all your teachers, the majority of them are still these liberal activists. So um, that's a tough one. I'm more on the lines of, thinking about alternative methods of education, homeschooling, private school, community school, something, because I just don't. You send your kid to school, your wonderful little girl, and your girl goes to school. Her name might be Susie. She comes home and says, "Hey, my name's Joe. I'm a boy."
But not really understanding what is going on. That's something interesting that you say. I have a friend whose child decided that she was non-binary, not understanding what the word meant whatsoever. It was just the cool thing to do. She didn't understand what the word meant. She didn't understand what it meant in terms of gender and sexual orientation, nothing. But she came home and said that was what she was, because that is what she's hearing at school or, on social media, these, whatever it was, so I think it's just so young to teach someone who really can't grasp the idea of what that means.
That's what's happening all over America, where I live,
Right.
where you live, where your friends live. Parents are trying to raise their kids and instill their family values. And then the kid comes home, it's a whole nother human being. It's not even the same kid you raised. So unless you want to lose your children and not recognize them and not have your child, I mean, that's what's happening. They're going to school like this one. Mom, I'm non-binary. The kid comes home, where did you learn that from? Well, my teacher told me some things. And like, you're 7 years old. What are you talking about? Your teacher, these teachers, honestly, they need to be fired, prosecuted. I'm pretty sure this is some sort of sexual harassment. And parents, they need to stop being nice, because these activist teachers are trying to brainwash your children. 10-year-olds in China can do advanced algebra and they're getting into calculus. 10-year-olds in America don't even know what bathroom to use.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I mean, so, and you just talked about this, but any kind of parting words for parents, any advice if they're just kind of freaked out, don't know what to do? Do I pull my kid out? Do I try to fight it? What would you say?
First, you need to pray. You need to pray, man. But you need to be very involved with your kid so that your kid is secure with you. Be open, have some open communication in the home. And then if you get a hunch and you're kind of thinking something's going on, there's a reason you have that hunch. You need to go with your gut instinct and look into what you think is going on, because probably more than likely some sick stuff is happening at the school, and you need to raise hell about it and find other parents who are also disgusted at what's going on and collectively raise hell and try to stop those problems. Not everybody can do homeschooling and not everybody can do private school. So those who are in public school, y'all need to band together. The parents need to band together and collectively fight back and oppose the things that they don't like.
Right. Absolutely. Well, that's definitely good advice. So what is next for you? They fired you because you weren't wearing your mask. What is next for you once you file, as well as how can people follow you and support your cause?
Yeah. So I don't really know what's next. Obviously, a career in education is, in public education at least, is over. The life I was starting to build in my area, in my community, where I live, where all my family lives, I can't do that anymore. So I'm trying to figure out what's next for me myself. But the lawsuit, it started because first it was the mask, then it was political, then it was personal, and then it's just blatant discrimination, so many different ways. But we filed a lawsuit, see what happens. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not a lawyer. I haven't worked in law. I'm going to try to find work local. I hope I can find something locally. I'd prefer to stay where I'm at. But the reality is, we just got hit by a hurricane in Southeast Louisiana. So everything is just ground zero. So I don't know. I might wind up going doing some disaster work to make some extra money, but to support my immediate cause in the meantime, and believe me, I don't plan on being unemployed forever. I hope that's not the case. But if you go to givesendgo.com/Louisiana teacher, you can pull up a whole thing. I wrote up a whole overview of what happened to me and what I'm doing. And if you want to support me in the immediate, in the right now, you can do that. People can also follow me on Instagram at Jonathan Koeppel, Facebook at Real Jonathan Koeppel, Twitter at Jonathan Koeppel, and just kind of follow what I'm doing, because I'm being very vocal. I'm trying to encourage parents to stand up, and I have a lot of free time now, so I'm trying to take advantage of it, because it can get very boring if I just stay home and stay in my house.
Well, and like you said, the devastation that happened in Louisiana after that hurricane ripped through. I mean, I know we were able to have this conversation, but I know you're still without internet. I mean, how are people doing that?
I had to go to somebody else. I'm at someone else's house so I can connect to their internet, because I can't connect. I just got power at my house last week, and there's still people without power today, and there's going to be people without power for probably 3 more weeks.
Wow. Okay. So, are there any funds as well in that regard? Can people help out if they're wanting to help out with hurricane?
A lot of churches locally have partnered with national organizations. You've got Convoy of Hope. You've got 8 Days of Hope. You've got Church of the King. They've been doing a lot of stuff. They've fed like over 70,000 people. They're providing supplies. You have Bethany Church, which is out of Baton Rouge. They have a campus in Houma. They are working hard. You can look up Bethany Church, Church of the King, and then from there you can connect with all the different organizations that are helping, and they all, on their websites, they all have different ways you can help. Whether you want to come down here and volunteer, I did that last week. It's really hot, so if you come, get ready to work and sweat. But if you look up Church of the King in Mandeville, Louisiana, and then Bethany Church in Baton Rouge, there's so many churches helping people, right? They're doing more than the government. The government's they're doing what they're doing, but the churches are literally outperforming the government when it comes to helping people, which honestly, that's how it should be. And that's just the reality.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on. Anything you really want to leave people with, at the end of this?
Just don't be scared, because things are not getting any better. You need to start asserting your rights, use your rights before you lose them. If you don't start using them now, that we might not have them in the future. So find people that are like you, even when it comes to, we have vaccine mandates coming from the federal government. Well, don't rush into doing something against your will. Hold out, because I don't think that mandate is going to stand. Find people that are just like you, and just really just stand tall and stand together.
Yeah, power in numbers.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much. You definitely exemplify what we're talking about here. You have the right, the freedom, and the power to be the change you want to be in the world. So thank you so much for joining us on The Right to Inspire, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone, so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.
You have the right to inspire.